Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3 and hello fellows, Herogon here, back with another update for Friday Funlogs. Now, I'm like to preface a few things. First up, I'm probably gonna be going to college sometime soon. So I don't know whether or not I'll be able to make as much updates as I want to, whether it's on a weekly basis. I may have to change my schedule a little, but hopefully people can understand that. College is definitely going to be a crazy ride if I end up in there. Now, this week I will be covering not just the fighting game tutorials, part 153's improvements, but I will also be covering some progress on my own little game, Path of Yao. Now, first going into things, we are again doing customizable macros. Now, customizable macros really can be useful to support different bindings. And we are doing different bindings per player and adding more macro configurations and improving our input stack. And this, mind you, is actually the first New Year's video. Today is Thursday, January 5th. I've already gotten myself lunch, nice little bit of chicken pot pie, and I'm definitely feeling a little excited about things. Now, going into the code itself, the big ones are base game instance, base player controller, and the Project Fight Stars character. In base game instance, I've moved the E input type from the character files into the base game instance header file. And right around here, I've got two macros now to test things out. You can have as many macros as you want. It doesn't have to matter for whether you just want one or, I don't know, 50. That's probably not a good joke there. But still, that's how possible things can be with, well, the whole C++ and Blueprint coding in Unreal Engine 5. Now, going into the .cpp, we use p1 macro1 inputs .setNum, and we also do the same for the p2 macro1 inputs, as well as the macro2 parts of that. Not much else there for base game instance changes. Now going into base player controller, we've got new stuff, call press and call release macro 2. Not much change there. Then in base player controller, we have set up our other macro stuff. In this case, call press macro 2 and call release macro 2. And our possessed pawn will call these in the Project Fight Stars character. So we go down to press macro, and we've got our little functions for press and release. Then go into the character.cpp. It's pretty much the same there, but there's the new addition, add input icon to screen. Now with this, we, instead of using a hard-coded number like 1, 2, 3, we use an integer, then game instance cast that to p1 macro1 inputs I. Then release macro is mostly the same, your usual e-release perform input logic. Same goes for press macro 2 and release macro 2. But we've got a new addition. Seeing as we now have 2 player for the macro parts, we need to use a boolean of if is player 1. If it's player 1, then we use P1 macro 1 inputs. If we are not, then we use P2 macro 1 inputs. And the same goes for the few other parts of logic. Now the other big improvement on that part involves the add input icon to screen. Going around there, we actually set new values. Instead of being your integer of 1, then we instead use the soft coding of int, then e input type with the corresponding input type. In this case, backward jump, forward jump, and neutral jump, or just e jump. And it's mostly the same for all other parts. Just use add input icon to screen, int, e input type, and e crouch. And that covers just about most of the coding part of this. Now going into base character BP, the big thing is add input image, our icon image array. I have changed the order around a little to correspond with everything. Got your right, left, up, diagonal up forward, diagonal up backward, down, block, throw, which is just merely the block image with a red tint, light punch, light kick, heavy punch, and heavy kick. And of course the little round victory as a little special attack, seeing as we've got ourselves that sort of thing here, the E special attack. And with that, I think that might be it for the whole deal of macros. But in order to show the rest, actually, there's another part. Event graph, we go into the keyboard support. We want to have both our macro 1 and macro 2 doing the P2 stuff. We have our usual validated get player 2 reference, get controller, cast a base player controller, and call release or call press macro 1. This is all on the pressed or released branches of the input action. And with that, let's get into the game and show some of the improvements. Now, in order to see the input stack, we must go into the practice mode. Now, things are a little bit slow for the compiling as well as loading certain things, but in here we can see all our inputs. And before we get further, I should go into the project settings and show you the input part. Now going into input, we have our macro 1 P1, macro 2 P1, macro 1 P2, and you know the rest. These use 1 and 2, so here I'll show. 1, we have light punch, then heavy punch. For 2, we have light punch and light kick, which does our little throw here. For this, and sometimes there's a bit of bugs here and there, but I'm still learning that. Now, with that pretty much wraps up the Fight Stars portion, or fighting game framework. Next up is Path of Yao, originally known as Martial Arts Madness. Going into here, we have just the slightest bit of things. We go into play, and we get ourselves a small little cutscene image I did. There's still placeholders here and there. If we wait, then we have ourselves a loaded level. If you go to level select, then most of the same stuff can go for that. We have a little loading menu, and then there we go. And that's most of the stuff around it. In my case, we also have an ending cutscene, but of course we won't be doing that. So with all that, that's pretty much it for the Martial Arts Madness stuff. Credit again goes to Sean the Bro for all of his videos. He's been definitely something of an Unreal Engine guy, and he's really been the best teacher I've had around for the tutorials. Even though all of his stuff is free and anyone else can use it, I'd like to say it takes a deal of someone to even get to this point. So, again, I do hope that you like and follow Sean the Bro. With that being said, I've been Herogon, you've been you, and here's to the new year, everyone. Goodbye.